They called them Ronson Lighters. Soldiers grimly joked that they lit up on the first spark. German tank aces, in their steel monsters, scornfully called them tin cans. On paper, the American M4 Sherman tank was worse than the German Tigers and Panthers in every way. Weaker armor, a weaker gun, an awkward, high profile. But there is one undeniable fact. It was these tin cans, these lighters, that ground the elite Panzer divisions of the Third Reich to dust. It was they who broke through the defenses in Normandy, chased the Germans across France, and stood to the death in the forests of the Ardennes. How? How did a weapon everyone considered second-rate become a symbol of victory? The answer lies not in the thickness of its armor, but in an idea that German engineers completely overlooked. Let's be honest. When the Sherman first appeared on the battlefield, it wasn't exactly awe-inspiring. In North Africa in 1942, it could still fight on equal terms with the German Panzer III and IV. But by 1944, when the Allies landed in Normandy, the situation had changed dramatically. New predators had entered the scene. The Panther, with its sloped armor that the Sherman's 75mm shell simply couldn't penetrate head-on. And of course, the legendary Tiger, a mobile fortress with a terrifying 88mm gun, capable of punching right through an American tank from 1.5 kilometers away. American tankers felt like Davids sent to fight an army of Goliaths. Their standard 75mm gun could only penetrate a Tiger's frontal armor at point-blank range, and the Sherman's thin vertical armor was vulnerable to every German anti-tank gun. The Ronson nickname didn't come from nowhere. Early models were indeed prone to catching fire when hit. Ammunition stored in the hull sides would detonate, leaving the crew no chance. The Germans were confident. They were facing a primitive, mass-produced product, no match for their technological masterpieces. They saw weakness, but they weren't seeing the whole picture. It was in that moment that a terrible truth began to dawn on German tankers. They could win a duel. They could win 10 duels. But they weren't fighting a duel. They were fighting a war of attrition against an enemy whose tanks, it seemed, never ran out. A famous saying goes, "A German tank had to destroy 5 Shermans to win." The problem was, a 6th one always showed up. This wasn't a clash of tanks. It was a clash of engineering philosophies against the ruthless mathematics of war. So, what was the Sherman's real superpower? It was a combination of several key elements that together created a machine of victory. The unstoppable flood, the power of industry. The Sherman's main trump card was forged not on the battlefield, but in the factories of Detroit. While Germany, with its perfectionism, struggled to produce around 1,300 Tigers and 6,000 Panthers during the entire war, American factories, working in 3 shifts, produced nearly 50,000 Shermans. Just think about that. For every single Tiger that rolled off the assembly line, there were almost 40 Shermans. The tank was designed from the ground up for mass production. Its engine was an adaptation of an aircraft motor, its suspension was simple, and its parts were interchangeable. This wasn't a handcrafted masterpiece, it was a Henry Ford assembly line product applied to warfare. While German tanks waited weeks for spare parts, new Shermans were already rolling off ships in the ports of Europe. The iron workhorse. reliability above all. A perfect tank stuck in the mud halfway to the front is just 60 tons of useless metal. And this is where the Sherman shined. German Tigers and Panthers were complex, temperamental machines. Their transmissions failed, their engines overheated, and field repairs were a nightmare. The Sherman was the complete opposite. It was as simple as a tractor. It could be repaired right in the field with a hammer and a few wrenches. It forgave the mistakes of its mechanics and could travel hundreds of kilometers without a major breakdown. While German Panzer divisions lost up to half of their machines to mechanical failures just on the march, the armadas of Shermans just kept on going. They were always where they needed to be. Wolfpack tactics. When one is none. The American command knew the shortcomings of their tank, so they developed tactics that turned those weaknesses into an advantage. Shermans never went head-to-head with a Tiger alone. They operated in groups, like a wolf pack. One or two tanks would draw the German giant's fire, maneuvering and creating a distraction. Meanwhile, 3 or 4 other tanks would move to the flanks and rear, where the armor was thinnest. And there, the 75mm gun was suddenly deadly. The Sherman had a couple more aces up its sleeve. Its electrically powered turret traversed much faster than the Germans, and a vertical gun stabilizer allowed it to fire accurately while on the move. Teamwork, speed, and coordination, thanks to excellent radios, beat German individual skill. Evolution on the battlefield. And finally, the Sherman didn't stand still. Engineers constantly improved it. The fire problem was solved by introducing wet ammunition storage. Shells were stored in a jacket of water. A new, more powerful 76mm gun was introduced, capable of fighting Panthers at medium ranges. The Easy 8 modification appeared, with a new suspension system that made the tank smoother and more accurate. The Sherman learned, adapted, and grew stronger right in the middle of the war. And this is where the individual pieces form the bigger picture. The Sherman was more than just a tank. It was the steel fist of Allied strategy. After the Normandy landings, it was the columns of Shermans that powered the famous Operation Cobra breakout, shattering the German front. They were the backbone of the Red Ball Express, the colossal logistical operation that fueled the advance across France. The Germans might win a battle today, destroying 10 American tanks, but tomorrow 20 more would arrive to take their place. The Wehrmacht could not replace its losses of elite machines and experienced crews. The Allies could. The Shermans allowed them to apply constant, relentless pressure, giving the enemy no time to breathe. They didn't break the German army in one decisive battle. They slowly, inevitably ground it down like a millstone. This wasn't a victory of quality over quantity, but a victory of a well-thought-out system over a collection of brilliant but unsustainable designs. So, was the M4 Sherman a bad tank? No. It was the right tank. The right tank for its country, its strategy, and its war. It wasn't born for chivalrous duels. It was born to crush the enemy with numbers, reliability, and the unforgiving logic of total war. It was mocked, but it is the Sherman that stands on pedestals in every liberated town in Europe. It became a symbol of American industrial might, pragmatism, and the ability to win not with the perfect weapon, but with the perfect system for producing and using it. The story of the Sherman is not a tale of perfect steel. It is a tale of the triumph of will, logistics, and overwhelming power, multiplied by thousands. And in that role, it was without a doubt, the greatest tank of its era, a true victor.